Hola amigos, bien o no, y saludos desde Medellín. Hoy vamos a hablar poco con temas tocando con motivación y poco como renovación, en el forma como refrescar la energía en tus estudios. So ese es casi el tema de hoy. So, hello again, here we are in Medellín once more, as always. A very lovely afternoon today. So, the theme for today really is thinking about how we can partly maintain our enthusiasm, because learning languages is a very long process. It's not something we can do in perhaps short time, and we have to keep at it. So it's how to stay motivated, maybe remotivate yourself a bit, put some more energy back into your project, feel a bit more enthusiastic about it perhaps, or maybe find a way to use the resources you have, which might indeed be quite limited, but to use them perhaps in a different way to help you advance a bit more. So it's kind of like you might feel you've reached the limit of what you can do with the resources you have. And maybe you think, well, I say I'm not going any further with this. This is as far as I've got. I'm not sure what else to do with it. And honestly, that was my feeling this last week with my Spanish. I thought, well, okay, here I am. Look, I've got this far with all the books I've got. How am I going to improve this? How am I going to keep moving this forward? And it gave me, while I was reading one of the books I was reading, that really you can use the books in different ways, in a sense. You can read it for content, to understand the general themes it's about. You can read it for vocabulary, to help you improve some new words, new phrases. Or you could just read it aloud and use it as a text just to practice how you sound in the language. So there are different ways to use the same text. And you can extend this to lots of the other resources you have. Maybe you've done dialogue cards or things like that before. So partly it's to remember the words and the phrases, but also it's to help you with the sounds. You can treat it like a memory game to see how much of it you can remember. You could just read it for sound to see that, okay, I can pronounce it okay. You could look for patterns to see how these questions are similar. You could then look for similar patterns in maybe some of the books you're reading to see if you could find some other examples of that type of pattern, that type of expression that's about the past, the present, the future, something like that. So maybe then you get different examples that you could then put back into other dialogues. It's really trying to look at different ways, different places you can try out your language in a new way, something that's a little bit new, a little bit more challenging for you. It's just not the same every day, because that's really the challenge, I think. Our routine can get a bit fixed, for no fault of anyone's particularly. It's just that's the way it works. Our day-to-day lives are pretty well established. We have a work pattern, the home life pattern is fairly well established. So to try and bring some novelty back into that, to test your language, sometimes can be a bit challenging, but it requires a lot of energy input on your part, because you have to take the decision that I'm going to ask an extra question, I'm going to change the things I say a little bit in this event. So you have to keep looking for new ways to describe things. But then, if you think about it, just looking around you, there are lots of things to talk about. I mean, we could look at the planes going by and discuss them, things like that. So, if we look carefully, even in what may look like, it's the same scenery, I see the same view all the time, there's actually quite a lot to talk about. Perhaps you haven't looked at it in a new way yet. So that's kind of my thought for the day. It's if you hit that kind of hit the wall and you think I don't know what else I'm going to do, maybe take a step back, take a slightly different viewpoint, focus on something a little bit different or perhaps in a slightly different way, and see if that gets you a way back into finding novelty. If you find a bit of novelty, a new way to look at it, or a new way that you can use your language, that again will give you new interest, and that'll give you a bit more impetus, push you on a bit further. So there we go, that's the idea for today. Déjame saber en los comentarios how you think about that. And until tomorrow, from Medellin, it's Cheerio.